Welcome back to the On the Ball podcast. This is episode 116 of this show. Once again, I've guessed the number because I have short-term memory loss when it comes to checking it and forgetting it straight away, but pretty sure it's 116. We're actually getting up there in the numbers. Feels like only last week we were in the 90s, but good that we've got some consistency going and we are pumping out this AFL content. We're back here again today to review round 2 of the AFL. Full disclosure, once again, I haven't watched too much of it because did have cricket on again. Hopefully that wraps up soon so I can start watching the footy because I'm actually keen to watch some of it. But got 2 guests on today. Rowey's back. How are you, mate?
Good, mate. How are you?
Yeah, very well on this Tuesday evening. Pilch, I think this is your first footy episode this season. Am I wrong?
You are not wrong.
Coach. We did the Super Coach.
Did a Super Coach one, but this is the first real footy one.
Yeah.
So, good to be on.
Yeah, glad we're not talking about Supercoach today because the huge anus Supercoach side is in tatters, boys. I was doing some research today and I reckon half my side's dropping in price this week. So I'm excited for that. Good to see Dom Tyson sitting at M7 for me, averaging 20. But yeah, similar structure to last week. Going to go through some. And we're also going to have a little chat in the middle of the episode about some of the best key forwards in the game at the moment. Obviously, Buddy returned to the scene, really. Hasn't played since 2019, I believe. So that made me think of it. So I was going to get these guys' opinions on who they think are the best key forwards going around in the AFL at the moment. But before then, we'll chat specifically about the weekend's action, some of the winners and losers from round 2. Can be teams, can be players, can be coaches, whatever you want. Pilch, I reckon we start with you, mate. Who's your first winner?
The D's for me. I think Rowey will absolutely hate this one, but I think they really raised everyone's opinions of them and like put themselves out there as a contender this season because I was, along with many others, pretty high on the Saints going into the year, and the D's put them away fairly easily. So, very good performance by them.
Yeah, Rowey, what did you make of that match? I do also have St Kilda in my losers, but I think I'll let you discuss it first. What do you think? It's a huge loss for St Kilda, or do you think it's just a little bit of a bump in the road? Only round 2, nothing to get worried about.
Well, I went to the game. Cricket got called off at about 4 o'clock on Saturday, and I was surrounded by about 5 of my mates, and we thought, let's go. Look, so the 3 hours of the game and sort of walking to Southern Cross Station, we were just thinking, what the hell just happened? Season over. But obviously, jumping to conclusions. I mean, it obviously wasn't pretty. Our ball use was absolutely horrendous, but we did eventually come to the realisation that it might just be a small bump in the road. We're not going to read too much into it yet. Look, it was, for example, like Max King's first game in front of St Kilda home crowd under Marvel. So we're not going to read too much into it yet. But yeah, I mean, the Bombers back at Marvel this week. The best way to bounce back is just to beat them. Simple as that.
Yeah, right now you couldn't really ask for a better bounce back game. So hopefully you can dispatch them pretty comfortably, which you probably should realistically. But yeah, Melbourne, absolute flying start to the season. They're 2-0 right now. They go to Canberra, Manuka, to play GWS this weekend. And given GWS's form, they're looking pretty likely to go 3-0 there. We might talk about our round 3 predictions later on. And yeah, I just like their list compared to some of the other clubs. They're probably competing for that 7th and 8th spot. Like, I prefer their list to the likes of Sydney and Carlton. They've got some pretty big name players throughout their side. Yeah, the forward line's a little bit lacking, but hopefully when Ben Brown and stuff comes back, that fixes. But when you've got Keziah Pickett, seems as though you don't really need a tall forward because he
was incredible.
Do everything for you. Yeah, he was awesome. And then you've got the back line of May, Lever, and then obviously their guts is pretty well renowned. So they're looking pretty good so far. We'll probably talk about whether you guys think they're going to make the 8 a little bit further down the track. Rowey, other winners from the weekend's action?
I've got Sydney. They put away Adelaide, as most teams in the competition would, but it just sort of showed that they're young guns. It wasn't one sort of flash in the pan last week. Brayden Campbell came out with the Rising Star nomination. He was unreal. Errol Goulden was again the highest or second highest ranked player on the field. Being 18 years old is an incredible performance from both of them. And Logan McDonald partnered perfectly with Buddy Franklin up forward. So wouldn't be surprised if he got the Rising Star nom this round coming up to put the Swans 3 from 3 there. But yeah, they did really well there. Sort of dispatched Adelaide and showed that they've probably got some of the best young talent in the competition at the moment. So I've got the Swans in there. Thought the Suns were very good as well. Unearthed Noah Anderson, showed how good he's going to be with 35 touches. Shows that Matt Rowell's wasn't just that draft wasn't just a Matt Rowell draft. It was Noah Anderson in there as well. But yeah, also not going to hate your Pilch. I definitely had Melbourne in there as the winners. We managed to unearth Cozzy Pickett and sort of formulated his 10-year career there in one game. So I think he owes us one for allowing him to absolutely torch us and adding 10 years onto his contract. But yeah.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. Other winners I'm looking at here. This is a rogue one. You actually might have them in your losers. But I'm looking at Brisbane. And I know it's controversial, but they are 0-2. But I just think the fact that they went to Geelong after a really disappointing loss in round 1 to Sydney, they went to Geelong and only lost by 1 point and arguably should have won, given that Blitzarves holding the ball call. I think it was Zach Bailey. I can't remember who tackled him. But yeah, I just think that showed that Brisbane are still a top 4 contender, still a premiership contender, and that they don't have too many worries, as I think some people were legit concerned after that round 1 match. They do have a tough stretch. Obviously, the COVID outbreak in Brisbane has thrown their season into jeopardy a little bit early, but it's probably a bit of karma, really, for their fortunate situation from last year. But yeah, they have the Pies this week at Marvel and then the Dogs in Ballarat. So not easy especially when they only were planning on being in Victoria for a couple of days. Now they're going to be here for 15 or so days. But yeah, I don't think it's time to stress too much. Everyone throws around a lot of stats about teams being 0-2, 2-0, making finals, missing out on finals. But in the last 4 seasons, an 0-2 team has made finals. And I think they're going to make that 5 in a row, because I'd be surprised if they miss out on finals after losing to Geelong by 1 at probably the hardest place to play footy at the moment. So yeah, I thought that was pretty good. And another side I was going to mention, Western Bulldogs. We talked about the Eagles getting the upset victory last week. We thought that was a good chance. But they're now 2-0. They beat them by 7 points. I heard some people, I didn't see much of it, but I heard people raving about the game, saying it was really entertaining. And then they've got North this week on Good Friday. So you can always put your house on them being 3-0. And yeah, it's just been a great start to the season for them. Their midfield looks like it's just going to overpower pretty much everyone in the competition. There are question marks about their forward line and back line, but yeah, with that midfield, it's pretty exciting times to be a Doggies fan. Pilch, any other winners you want to touch on, or do you want to get into your losers?
I'll get into the losers. I had Sydney as well with their rookies and getting Franklin back, but we already touched on it. So I'll kick off the losers with the umpires this week. Pretty much mainly in the Geelong-Brisbane game. Absolutely shocking. And not just the holding the ball at the end. One of Geelong's other goals, someone threw it to Selwood and he scored, and there were just some absolute shockers going on in that game. And Brisbane were absolutely robbed. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's a tough one. In the NRL, they have a bit of a captain's challenge. I think it's tough to bring something like that into AFL because it's pretty continuous. Like, you don't really want the play to just stop for a captain's challenge, but the amount of games that have, I know there's a lot of moments in games that could arguably tip it the other way, but the amount of clear-cut, shocking calls in the last 2-3 years that have cost teams matches, it's looking like they're going to have to bring something like that in because, yeah, Brisbane were pretty hard done by on Friday night. Pretty much everyone knew that was holding the ball. It just took one replay, really, and it was pretty clear-cut. And there was prior opportunity. I don't care what you say. Rosef, any other losers you want to touch on?
Yeah, definitely agree with the umpires. And yeah, that's definitely going to come back to bite Brisbane. in terms of like ladder positions at the end of the year, you know how close top 4 can get, and the top 8. So definitely the umpiring there. I've got Carlton in there. I know it wasn't a massive monumental loss to the Pies, but they are 0-2 after many saw them having a sort of top 8 year. To lose, to sort of fall away against Richmond last week, and then I think many had the favourites against Collingwood this week to go 0-2, and then now have sort of Fisher and Martin out for the next 6 weeks isn't great for them. Also, GWS is a big one. I think Leon Cameron's really under pressure at the moment. Lots of the game, GWS only kicked 2 goals for the game, like I think deep into the third quarter that might have been. So, worrying signs in the West, at the west of Sydney. So, yeah, I think that's enough for losers though, because I don't really want to talk about St Kilda. So, I'll let you continue it on.
Yeah, Carlton. I have big questions about Carlton. Everyone was talking about them as a top 8 team this year. They're now 0-2, lost to a Pies team that people were they were off them straight away after their round 1 result, thought they were no good. A lot of people talk about Carlton and how good their list is, but I don't really understand this, to be honest. I actually think if you look at their top level talent, compare it to someone like Melbourne, I don't think their top 5, top 10 players is even in the same ballpark. They might have a little bit more depth than Melbourne, you could argue, but as we've seen in the last couple of seasons, when Melbourne get a couple of injuries to a few key positions, they go down pretty quick. But especially without Charlie Curnow, I think he makes a big difference. I think he's a world beater. But without him, I just don't think they have too many match winners, really. Cripper's not looked too good to start the season. People thought he was going to come out new and fresh after, I assume he got surgery on his knee or whatever, but he doesn't look like he's changed too much. Yeah, I know Finn Broadbent said he looked like a new man in the preseason, but yeah, I don't know if that's really translated to the big stuff. That report's come out today, I think, that he's been getting like massive injections or something to get him through the games in the first 2 rounds. So yeah, I just don't really see what the hype about the Teague train is at the moment. And I know they could easily turn it around this weekend, but yeah, I'm very worried for Carlton fans. I think everyone got their hopes up a little bit too high coming into the season, and it might be over pretty quickly if they keep this up. But yeah, also as you guys mentioned, GWS pretty shite start to the season. I don't really know what's happened to them. Even their top guys seem to not be producing the same output as they once were. And yeah, it's looking pretty stale now at GWS. It has always been a pretty exciting team to watch, looked like an exciting team to be a part of, but now, yeah, it doesn't look like they've got too much going for them, really. So yeah, just as you mentioned, Rowe, pretty shit for Western Sydney. I reckon that's enough for the winners and losers. Moving on to your boys' predicted top 8. Pilch wasn't on the podcast last week, but I got him to note down his old top 8. I don't know if you remember it, Pilch, but I've got it written down here. So we'll talk about changes. Rowey, do you have any changes to your top 8 after watching the weekend's action?
Yes, I do. I'm just going to straight up list my top 8. I've got Port going up into first. I think they're pretty unbeatable at Adelaide Oval now. And I think we've seen the Cats might be a bit more exposed this year. They won't be as strong as we all think. Lions, obviously, I don't think they'll come the top 1 or 2. I think they look a bit weaker. And Richmond, I've got them in second. They always seem to float in that top 4 and then fire in the final, so I've got them there. Geelong and Lions rounding off the top 4. I still don't think the rest of the teams are good enough to push into the top 4, but never know. I've got the Doggies going up to 5th. I think the power of that midfield is just way too strong for so many teams, and starting to look at Norton and Bruce providing some good output up forward for them, which is what they were obviously lacking for a lot of last year and the year before. I've got the Saints sliding. I know this. I've still got them at 6th. We're just going to take a few weeks to see if that's realistic or not. I've got the Eagles in 7th. I know they lost on the weekend, but it was a gutsy loss, and many could argue they should have won the game, barring a bit of a lapse in the last sort of 5-10 minutes of the game. I've got Melbourne sitting at 8th, pipping teams like the Pies and Freo.
Yeah, I think that would be a pretty popular in this week to people's top 8s. Melbourne been very impressive so far. Pilch, what are your changes?
I'm just going to do the same as Rowey because I don't have my old top 8 here. So
yeah,
I've got Port first. That hasn't changed since about November last season. Geelong second, Richmond third, and then Saints still fourth. Rowey will be happy to hear that. I'm not jumping off yet. I think they've got I don't want to jinx you, but you should win this week, and then Rowan comes back the following week, and I think that'll be huge.
Get rid of Paul Hunter.
That'll be huge. Paul Hunter sucks. And then
Sean McKernan.
Doggies fifth, Brisbane sixth, got them sliding. West Coast seventh, and then eighth could be anyone, but I'm going to go with the Swans because I love them.
Oh, nice. Yeah, the Swannies are definitely second team material this year for most AFL supporters, I reckon. All right, moving on to our new segment. Got to try and do this every week. Just think of a topic, and I'm going to get the guests to come up with their lists. I just like it really because it's not too time relevant, and I can clip it and chuck it up on a weekend and it won't be outdated. So we'll start with you, Pilch. So what I told you guys was best 10 tall forwards in the AFL right now. Obviously, there's, as Pilch would say, that it's dubious what a tall forward is. We were just talking about it before we came on air. So I've kind of left it up to them to really think about how they're going to take it. So, yeah, take it away, Pilch. What's your top 10?
Can we reel off the whole 10, or should me and Rowey rotate?
Nah, go the whole 10, and then we'll get Rowey's 10 after.
All right. So, starting at 1, I've got Tom Hawkins in first place. I think that speaks for itself. Clearly the best last season, and he played a blinder on the weekend against the Lions. I've got Dixon in second place. Kind of the same. Clearly the second best one last season and off to a good start this season. I think there's a decent drop-off, but I've gone with Franklin at third just because, when he's fit, he's arguably the number one key forward in the game. So I'll put him in there, and hopefully he does get back to full fitness. Fourth, I've got Jack Gunston. As we just said, a lot of these are different sorts of players, but he was in the All-Australian squad last season, kicked a lot of goals, very underrated. Fifth, Jack Darling. I think also underrated. I think he's the best out of the West Coast boys because he does a lot more around the ground. Like Kennedy just takes 4 marks, kicks 4 goals, and that's him done for the day. At 6, Matt Taberner does some good work for Freo, decent player. 7, Oscar Allen, big fan of him. I think he's very underrated as well and will be very good. 8th, Eric Hipwood. 9th, Jeremy Cameron, and 10th, Tom Lynch.
Ooh, interesting. No JJK. Interesting.
No JJK and no Rewalt. I think Lynch, Rewalt, and Kennedy are all pretty overrated.
And you could argue Danaher could be stiff to miss out. That's clutching at straws. I don't know. We'll see what Rowey's got. You go through yours, man.
Yeah, definitely not disagreeing with the top 2. Tomahawk and Dixon at 1 and 2 for me. I think Tomahawk's just got slightly more strings to his bow than Dixon, but I tell you what, Dixon just looked like he was just too good for Essendon on the weekend. Just looked like he just absolutely monstered them. So I can't wait to watch him play this year. At 3, so yeah, the rest of my top 10 is going to differ from Pilch's a lot. Bear in mind, I've sort of chucked this together last minute. I still have JJK in there based on a bit of form in the last year. And so I know he does have those sort of 4 disposal, 4 goal games, but I'm still thinking back to the final last year or a couple of years ago. I can't remember which one it was, but he just took them home at Optus Stadium. It might have been against the Pies last year. But I still think he's just capable of kicking those bags for you. Whereas I think Darling, I don't know. I think we're opposite, Pilch. I don't rate Darling as much. I think he's a bit of a soft tall forward. This could be purely because he lost me my multi the other week, but I've got him outside of the top 10. 4, I've got Jack Rewalt. I think he contributes to a lot of goals in the Richmond lineup. I think a lot of those players in that team are really selfless. I think he's one of them. At 5, call me Cooper Gretsch. I've got Tim Membry. I think he's got apart from Tomahawk and Dixon, I think he's got like the best hands of the game. It just sucks he's 188 because the displays aren't as sort of prominent as them. Yes, he doesn't kick like the 7 or 8 goal games, but he can kick a bag of like 4 and sometimes 5. So, and he will rack up those sometimes 20 possessions like we saw the other week against the Giants. He's not going to rise up high on that list. He probably is too high, but that's a Saints fan talking. Aaron Norton in it next. I think he's going to be really special for the Dogs. He's obviously one of the best contested marks in the game and one of the best haircuts as well. So I've got him in there. I've got Oscar Allen in there next. Agree with you, Pilch. He's going to be awesome. Similar to Norton, I think. Very versatile. I've got Jack Gunston in next. I just think playing for a Hawks outfit is a bit sort of unnoticed at times, but he is a gun, hence the name Gunston. Next, I've got Tom Lynch. Don't like him at all, but he's just a good tall forward. Enough said. And I'm not sure. I think that's 10 because I've actually screwed up my list, but I've got Buddy in there at 10, just purely because we haven't seen much of him at all this year and last year. So I've sort of just thrown him in there at 10. I couldn't leave him out. Honourable mentions to Taberner, Darling, McKay, the Kings, who I'm sure will be in there in the years to come.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting list, boys. A lot of unique calls. I liked your Darling over JJK call, Pilch. I don't think too many would back you in there, but I like the reasoning as well. Pretty fair effort from West Coast. All 3 tall forwards getting a mention from you boys. Maybe should suggest that they lift the flag this year, but who knows? I've also asked you, Rowey, to think about the best 3 tall forwards you've ever seen. Pilch, sort of similar to me, has only really started getting into AFL. Well, not getting into it. He's been obsessed with it, but in the last 5 or so years. So I've gone Rowey. Who are the best 3 tall forwards you've ever seen in your lifetime?
Well, I'm going to go off seeing in person, not just highlights years ago. Some would say I've snubbed him at 10, so I've chucked him in at 1. Obviously, Lance Franklin. No one's going to argue with that. Just an absolute freak of nature. Next, I've got Nick Rewalt. This isn't my Cooper Gretsch talking. This is genuine. Probably one of the best players ever to not win a flag. He was just an absolute machine for the Saints and really carried us through so many years and really should have had a flag to his name in 09 and 10, but unfortunately wasn't to be. One of the best centre-half forwards the game will ever see. And at third, Matthew Pavlich from the Dockers. I know he had a very sort of mixed-up career. He played in a lot of different positions, but given a lot of his career was spent in the forward line, I've definitely got to give him the number 3 place. Extremely versatile player. He averaged something like 17, 18 touches for his career, which is huge for someone that played a large proportion as like a centre-half forward. So that's my top 3.
Yeah, some huge names there. I like it though. I like getting some insight into an AFL expert's opinion. All right, moving on to our players of the week. Did it last week. We'll just discuss our top 2 or 3 backs, midfielders, forwards, and then we'll name a ruck as well. And then we'll also have a chat about a rookie of the week. Up to you boys. How in depth you want to go into your picks? I'll actually start us off. Back to the week. My number 3, so 3 being the third best. Jack Crisp, thought he had a pretty good game. For Collingwood, arguably a midfielder, but he does mainly play a halfback, doesn't do too much defending though. Jordan Ridley, my number 2, stood out in a absolute flogging. Yes, that does help him because the ball's pretty much in his area the whole match, but still can't really argue with his stats. But my number 1 man is Dougal Howard this week. He was first in their match for metres gained with 769 metres. He also had the most rebound 50s in the game, most intercepts, most contested marks, most intercept marks. And he also had the 3rd most effective kicks, which is pretty weird for a tall backman. Like you'd maybe think that from like a Shannon Hearn type player, but not so much from a Dougal Howard. So yeah, he absolutely killed it. And yeah, big fan of the Dougal, so why not? Pilch, who are your backs of the week?
Yeah, mate. So 3rd best, Jordan Ridley. You pretty much covered it. Was the only good player for Essendon. 2 votes, Darcy Moore. I think he's been looking very good this season, and he had a blinder against Carlton. He looks very good. And then number one, my boy Dan Houston, who just played an absolute blinder of a match. I think he had about 26 disposals at 100% efficiency, which is just insane. His kick is just ridiculous, and yeah, he played off his head, and he's a freak.
Yeah, Houston got the 4 votes for me in that game. Rowey, backs of the week.
Yep. I've got Darcy Moore at third, 22 touches. You know, looked like an absolute animal off halfback. Yeah, I know it was a bit controversial because his direct opponent kicked 4 on him, but I still think he was just a machine off halfback. He's incredible to watch. Number 2, I do have Dan Houston. When I saw the stats, I think it was 25 touches at 96%. Can't not have him in there. It seemed like he absolutely killed the Bombers. But at number 1, I do have Dougal Howard. 29 touches. I was sitting behind the goals about 10 rows back. So I saw a lot of Dougal, at least for 2 quarters. And he really was a machine. I think he got a match high, like 13 spoils as well. So obviously in honour of Spud for
Classic Dougal.
Yeah. Absolutely tore. Well, I was going to say tore apart Melbourne's forward line. Really didn't because they killed us, but really did perform to the best he could. Unfortunately, was let down by the rest of the team. But he was definitely my back for the week.
Love how me and Rowey had Houston and Dougal Howard as our number 1 backs.
Yeah.
Yeah, good lads. Good to see you impartial. They both did have good games. All right, midfielders of the week. Obviously, so many to choose from in the midfield. My number 3 was Jack Macrae. Absolutely dominated in the Dogs midfield, as most of them did, to be honest. I know Dunkley played off his face as well. So he got my full votes for that game. Jed Anderson was my number 2. Interesting in a huge loss to the Suns, but he actually got my 5 votes in that one. And my number 1, bouncing back from an absolute stinker in round 1, it was Taylor Adams. Going back to that Collingwood game, he had the most inside 50s on the ground, the most contested possessions, the most clearances, the most tackles, the 3rd most score involvement. So fair to say he was tearing shit up, as he usually does. Didn't necessarily do it for my Supercoach draft team in round 1 when he put up 42, I think it was. But yeah, he was back to his best for the Pies. Pilch?
Yep, so I almost just put all 3 of the Dogs mids in there because they just put on an absolute clinic against Nick Naitanui. I know West Coast had a few mids out, but they were unreal. But I've given Clayton Oliver 3rd place, and then Macrae Bont 1st.
Yep, nice. Rosef?
Yep, I agree. Jack Macrae at 3rd for me. It's pretty incredible to have someone that had 41 touches, 15 contested as your number 3, but he's in at number 3. Number 2, I have Clayton Oliver. It's 37 touches, 21 contested, and he was a machine. I remember watching him, and every single time he would get a touch in the midfield, we would all just say, if Clayton Oliver gets one more effing touch, I'm going to lose my shit. And we said that about 15, 20 times after the first quarter, because he was literally everywhere. He killed us. I don't even think we won a set of clearance. Well, we obviously did, but it didn't appear as though we won a set of clearance in the match because of him. And at number 1, I have the Bont, who had arguably played a lot forward. So I know it's a bit skeptical, but had 30 touches, 93% efficiency, and kicked 3 goals. And one was the match sealer. So I've got Bont in there.
I think if he's arguably a forward and you've given him the most votes as a midfielder, I think that's more of a compliment, to be honest. Normally it's the other way, just to fill out the forwards. So I don't think we can complain about that one. Ruck of the week.
Can I just give a shout out to Mundy?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely killed it.
My honourable mentions, I've got him and Brayshaw in there. So
yeah,
Mundy's, they were
so underrated.
Mundy at 63 years old, he's still tearing it up. So yeah,
he's actually got similar hair to you, Rosef, the old Mundy. Ruck of the week. I don't know. I feel like this is a pod, but I don't know. Jared Witts. He actually, when one on, obviously played against North, so he was up against Goldstein, one of the premier rucks in the competition, and he won the duel. Had 12 hitouts to advantage, which was more than Goldie. He also had the second most clearances on the ground, which is pretty good considering both teams actually have pretty good clearance midfield players, the likes of Anderson. Well, Anderson times two. And he also had the most score launches for the game, which I think is a pretty important stat for Ruckman. So I gave it to him. Pilch?
Yeah, I've got another pod actually, and you're probably going to rip me, but Scott Lysette absolutely destroyed Sam Draper in all facets of the game, in the ruck, around the ground. And he always flies under the radar, Lysette. I think he's easily a top 8 ruckman in the league.
Yeah, interesting. Rosef?
Yeah, you boys can have them. I'll take Nick Nat, actually. I thought against Tim English and Stephen Martin, who I think are going to cause a lot of trouble this year as a dual partnership, I thought Nick Nat just sort of destroyed them. I know they didn't get the dub, the Eagles, but Nick Nat was huge, 40 touches, 40 hit-outs, 13 touches, 5 tackles and 11 clearances. Thought he was unreal. Was going to have a look at Maxi Gorn, but then I realised he was up against an absolute spud in Paul Hunter. So, Max was definitely not considered after that.
Yeah, fair enough there. Nick Nat's an absolute weapon. All right, forwards of the week. There's actually some probably clear options here. Number 3, I'm going Zach. Mum's putting me off here. I've got an audience. She's just sitting at the door watching me talk. Number 3, I'm rocking... Nah, she just wants to hear the lads talking Boris. Fair enough. Number 3, I'm going Zach Butters. Arguably a midfielder, but also does bits up forward. Absolute beast. My favourite was in the highlights when Charlie Dixon had done a 30-metre lead out of the goal square. The ball's about a metre in front of his hands and Butters just jumps in front and grabs it. Absolutely risked his life. Thankfully, Dixon stopped. Otherwise, I think that could have been Butters' last game. But he's my number 3. Number 2, Hawkins. Touched on it before. He was pretty bloody good against the Lions. But number 1, the big Tex. Don't know what he's done over the preseason, but I think he kicked 6, and I think Adelaide only kicked I can't remember how many goals they kicked, but I think they only had 3 goal scorers because I think Mick Adam or something had 4. But yeah, most goals on the ground, most scoring involvement, second most score launches. Tex just for some reason has become a beast. I don't know what's going on there. Rowey, forwards of the week for you.
I'm gonna have Tex. Actually, I won't have him in yet. I'll have Hawkins at 3. Nearly single-handedly got the Cats to win on the weekend. He was huge. Obviously, he kicked the 4 and was an absolute monster for them. At 2, I've got Tex. Obviously, kicked 6, but in a losing team, I can't really give him the number 1 spot because at number 1, I've got Zachy Butters. 36 touches for a guy that looks like he's 12 and just absolutely tore apart Essendon. Looks like he's going to be a freak. I remember watching that first match that I keep referring to this match, but the one that Dersma, Butters and Rosie played in, I was always thinking these guys are going to be freaks, but who's going to be the best? At the time, I actually thought Dersma, and then obviously went to Rosie, and now Butters, I think, is the standout. So, he's an absolute machine at the moment. So I think Charlie Dixon, an honourable mention there as well.
Yeah, I always thought Willem Drew was actually the best of the lot. Still waiting for the great man.
For the redhead.
Well, he's keeping Rockcliffe out the team, so he's doing something
exactly.
Right. He's huge, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Jordan Goey as well, I think, is pretty honourable.
Yeah, that's a great point, actually. All right, Pilch, who have you got here?
Yeah, mine was the exact same as Rowey. Hawkins 3, Tex 2, Butters first. Butters was literally just taking the mick. And as Rowey said, he looks like he's 12 and he's taking the piss out of blokes who are 26 and 100 kegs. It's just ridiculous. But yeah, he's going to be an absolute freak. 8-time All-Australian, as you said before the podcast.
Yeah. I don't know how I feel about Butters now being regarded as a beast because I feel like it must be like when a Triple J listener, one of their songs hits the mainstream charts. I feel like only people who watch Port games closely realised how elite he was, but now everyone knows he's a beast because he was an absolute freak. But yeah, fair enough. He deserves his plaudits, I guess.
I remember watching in his draft year. I think I was looking at his build, like 180 centimeters, like 70 kilos, looked like a wiry outside runner. I thought he'd only never get like 15, 20 touches in a game, might play as a small forward. But yeah, seeing him produce these numbers at like his sort of build is ridiculous and it's completely proven me wrong. So yeah, he's a machine.
I have so much respect for him.
His footy smarts as well are insane. Like some of the kicks that he does, just ridiculous.
Yeah. And a lot of the times he doesn't even have to possess the ball to have an impact. Like he'll do a shepherd or just a little tap on. And yeah, as you said, Pilch.
And he crashes packs as well.
Yeah. Uses his big frame. All right. Rookie of the week. We made the rules, the Rising Star game eligibility. So 10 or less games at the start of the year. I've decided not to abide by the age rule though. Mine's actually probably a pod. I'd say you'd be going for the actual winner of the Rising Star nomination, but we'll find out. I've gone with Isaac Cumming, the great man from GWS. This kind of happens sometimes when a team does get pumped. Usually a halfback gets rewarded by, like Ridley did on the weekend, but he had the most meters gained in 695 for the match. He had 10 rebound 50s. And he had 19 effective kicks, which were all the most out of that match for those specific stats. So, yeah, he was pretty good. I think I gave him 2 votes for that matchup, which was not bad in a 30-point loss. Rowey, Rookie of the Week for you?
Yeah, Cummings definitely a very good mention. I was doing something similar, though, watching Brayden Campbell's highlights. As an 18-year-old, just bouncing off halfback, 25 touches, and over 700 metres gained. It's a second gamer. I know it was against Adelaide once again, but and a bit of a generic choice because he did win the Rising Star nom. But yeah, I thought he was unbelievable. Yeah, he's just a really damaging player. And yeah, to have that sort of effect in your second game is unbelievable. Can't wait to watch him in the years to come. It's a bit like those poor youngsters I kept referring to years ago. Him and Goulden and McDonald, I think, are the 3 this year to watch.
Yeah, Pilch, what about you?
Yeah, I went Campbell as well. It was out of him and Errol Goulden, to be honest, for me, and gave the nod to Campbell. And I reckon, like, so far, they're easily ahead of the Port trio for me, the Swans trio.
Yes. It's actually not a bad point.
A small sample size, though.
Yeah, it's true. There's obviously something in the water in New South Wales because so far our 4 rookies of the week that have been mentioned, Matt Flynn, Cumming, Goulden and Campbell, have all been from Sydney teams. So I don't know if there's something in that. But so that'll do for our player awards basically and our week 2 wrap up pretty much. We'll now move on to our week 3 preview, Easter weekend. So there's Good Friday footy, Easter Monday footy as well. To be honest, both those matches this year aren't that interesting. Dogs and North and Hawthorn and Geelong, but you never can write Alistair Clarkson off anything. But we'll start with your sure bets of the week. Pilch, what's your sure bet of the week? I feel like there's one that we're all going to have. Yeah. But I don't know. We'll see.
Like, I didn't want to pick it, but it was just easily the sure bet of the week. So we've got the Doggies over North Melbourne. You could feel pretty safe putting your house on that one.
Yeah, it's $1.07, so I don't even know if it's worth it.
Yeah, it's not. Well, actually,
yeah.
I mean,
I actually don't know if that's worth it, to be honest. They could have 15 concussions and all of a sudden North win by default.
This is the only way that they're going to win.
The only chance.
Yeah. It could happen. Ben Cunnington's predicted to be back. Could change the game. Rosif, what's your sure bet of the week?
Oh, yeah, surprise. I've got the Dogs. I'm not just going to say I think Dogs by 40 plus. I think they're going to kill the North. I don't really think North are better than them in any other area of the ground. So, yeah, I think the Dogs are just going to make an absolute mockery of them.
Yeah, is Dogs North always Easter Good Friday, or is it because Pilch, didn't we go to a Good Friday game or something and it was St Kilda?
It's always North, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's just
Um,
a weird
Mate,
setup.
when
North just
I
have to play.
saw that, I got home from soccer, I think, and I saw the North result, and I was just like, surely not. Like, it was actually disgusting. This, like,
Yeah,
I actually thought they
feel-
were a sniff to beat Gold Coast, but
Ooh,
Well, I backed him in with the line. I thought they were going to produce
yeah,
with the betting lines last week, but nope, they were shit.
because like
yeah.
they weren't dog shit against Port in round one. Like they
Yeah, that's
came
true.
out, started pretty well, but yeah, obviously they suck.
Yeah, who knows? Yeah, our sure bet of the week got up last week. I'll try and keep you guys updated on how our previous tips go. We obviously had Port to beat Essendon. No, don't really need plaudits for that, do we? Upset of the week. There's actually a few options this week. There's quite a few games that are fairly close in the betting odds. I'll start with my number one though. I sent this into a group chat. I actually don't get this personally. Maybe because of the COVID thing. Maybe that's going into some people's reasonings. But when I checked last night, Brisbane were $2.05 to beat Collingwood.
They still are.
And I don't really get it because after round one, everyone was off Collingwood. As Crofty would say, they were going off like a what did he used to say? A fish milkshake on a hot day or something. But no one wanted to touch him. And now Brisbane lose to Geelong in Geelong by 1 point. Now people think the Pies will beat Brisbane. So, yeah, maybe it's COVID, that sort of situation being factored in, which would be fair enough. And they are probably going to be without a ruckman, as Big O doesn't look like he's going to get up, which is beautiful for Hugh Janus, as Tom Fullerton is on my forward bench. If hopefully he plays permanent rucking roles. But I just think Brisbane, they're a pretty solid chance in any game they're an underdog in, really. They're a good team. So that's my upset of the week, but there are a few options. Pilch, is that your upset of the week as well, or are you looking at something else here?
It is, but I just want to say I often check the lines as soon as they come out because there's always some like weird ones. And when I checked, Port were $2.05 underdogs against West Coast. So if you manage to get on that early, then that would definitely be mine.
Yeah, that changed.
They've come into $1.90 now, so that's why I didn't pick them. But I like Brisbane a lot as well.
Yeah, there must have been some drastic movement in that because when I checked the line, it actually been taken down, and West Coast were up to like $1.95. So people must have been frothing that. Rosef?
Well, I'm actually quite shocked that Freo are such massive underdogs against Carlton. I mean, Carlton start the season 0-2. They've got Fisher and Martin out. Cripps is in poor form. And in fact, I might actually quickly chuck 50 on Freo now. Freo just exactly. I think I've got like a $50 bonus bet. I might chuck that on. To see Freo just torch GWS, and I know that's the 5 situation, but they've got Sarong, Brayshaw had 35 or 30 odd. Mundy had 35. They've got Tamina up 4. They've got Swikowski, who I've actually always rated. Is a sort of blistering sort of half medium forward. Once every 3-4 games, he'll have a 5 disposal performance get dropped. But Freo fans seem to rate him. Exactly.
Is that offensive or is that a compliment? A bit of a motlop? I don't know.
Offensive.
I rate the kid. I rate the guy. He's an absolute myth, but I think he's going to be good. I think they have better young talent than I'm sure everyone would say better young talent than Carlton. Carlton really only have Walshy and maybe a couple of others like Mackay and Charlie in there. But I think Freo's talent is going to get the better of Carlton at Marvel. I'm definitely going to take advantage of those odds, at least straight after this podcast. But yeah, that's definitely my upset for the week.
Yeah, I don't know what to think about Carlton because I have a lot of mates that are big Carlton fans. Obviously, Jack Broadbent's been on the podcast a few times. A few boys from my cricket club are diehard. So I don't really want to see their sanity tested. But at the same time, it'd be a bit of a pisser if they go like 0-10 or something. Yeah. I'm all about Freo on that one. I'm actually opposing you here, Pilch. When I checked, well, this is because I just don't know which way this game's going to go. So I think either way, the underdog's a solid bet. But when I checked, West Coast were $1.94. And as we know, in the past, West Coast have beaten Port in some pretty big situations. Not sure if round 3 is quite that occasion, but I know West Coast probably, with Adelaide's form right now, West Coast is arguably Port Adelaide's arch enemy, given some of their huge clashes, I'd say, in the last 4 years. So, yeah, especially at Optus Stadium, I think West Coast is a fairly decent value to be an underdog at home. But yeah, I don't actually know who I'm going to tip in that one. Probably need to think about that. All right, betting lines, game spread, however you want to call it. What's the most appealing sort of lines to you, Pilch?
Yeah, my number one is just Port head-to-head because the line's at 0 points. I know everyone bangs on about West Coast at Optus, but Port are just... I never bet my own team, so I won't be putting money on this game, but Port are just a miles better team at the moment, better list, pretty much better everything. And I believe we've won our last 3 against them at Optus. And that was when we were shit in like 2019. So
are you not concerned?
I think $1.90 is a steal to be.
Are you not concerned that the Port boys haven't been tested yet? They've played Adelaide in the JLT and then obviously 2 fairly easy teams so far. Are you a bit worried it'll be a big step up for them?
Normally I would be, but given last season, I'm gonna back us in.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Well, like a fair point there. Rosef?
Well, I'm just going to go ahead with Freo again at a plus 15.
Yeah.
I think that's ridiculous. I've also got Melbourne in there against the Giants. I think I don't know, actually, for such a betting man, I'm actually not sure.
I never know
I never really
how
do
to
the
say it.
lines, but yeah, at sort of negative 8.5, I think they're going to beat GWS quite convincingly. So I've got them in there. I think the Dogs at negative 42.5. I think they're getting beaten by 10 goals plus, especially with these extended quarters. Like Norton might kick 5. Josh Bruce might actually maybe kick a couple. I just don't see North really having any scoreboard impact whatsoever. The Bont will probably go forward and have a party as well. So those are my big 3.
It might be a bit sadistic, but I'm fucking doughy for it. I'm doughy to see the Doggies boys just rack up touches. Hopefully Daniel and Dunkley are in there causing carnage for the Hugh Janus Supercoach side. But and it's also at a time slot where there's no NRL, so I'll definitely be tuning into it. Might even
there was a photo. There was a photo of like the Dogs players to get 20 plus touches, and like there was like 10 people, like $1.03. It was quite funny.
Yeah. That's. I fucking love the Doggies. I can't lie. They just seem like good blokes. But yeah, when Jason Johannesson can't even get into his side, things are going well. For me, the one that intrigued me the most is Gold Coast. When I checked, they were at minus 2.5. I don't know how. It's in Adelaide, which I guess could scare people off. I think Gold Coast will win that. I'll definitely be tipping them. And for any favourite or person I think is going to win to be under, a goal in the spread, I think that's pretty good odds. Because yes, it happens, but how often do teams win by 1 or 2 points? It's pretty rare. So I think Gold Coast should cover that, especially if they win. And yeah, like you said, Rowey, I saw the Freo one at plus 17.5, and I'd probably snap your hand off for that. I'm not too confident on the head-to-head for them. Like, they are good value. But, yeah, given that 3-goal leeway, I definitely like that for Fremantle. Any other predictions you boys want to make for the weekend? Any players, any teams, any other road calls?
Oof, no predictions. I'm just going to say I think that'll be a good match to watch, Adelaide Gold Coast. I think playing in front of Adelaide, who arguably like the weakest team of the comp, in front of an Adelaide crowd who do get up and about, which we saw against Geelong. I think it will be a really good mental task for the Suns. We obviously saw that Geelong went up for it, come up against the weakest team of the comp, but in front of a really huge, intimidating crowd. I think it's a test that many, many teams would struggle against. So I think if Gold Coast managed to come up with a victory, I think it's be a huge tick for them. I know it's a bit funny to say that because Adelaide are the worst team in the comp, but I do think it'll be a big task for them.
Yeah, especially considering most of the Gold Coast players have only 1 or 2 years into their career and they play at the Gold Coast where they get 10,000, 15,000 people to games. So yeah, that's going to be a big shock for them, playing in front of a big passionate crowd that are hurling abuse and probably other things at them. Pilch, any calls you want to make here? Concerned. He's got that look on his face. He's going to say something.
No, I've actually got nothing.
Yeah, fair enough.
All my spreads were covered by you boys. I like Freo and Brisbane
and
cover
Port.
and Port. Yeah,
I'll have one road call. I'll go the first Supercoach 200+ point game for the year. We'll go to Josh Dunkley this weekend against North. I reckon they'll chuck him in the middle, full time.
I've got a semi.
Yes,
Rowey,
40+ touches,
Rowey,
3+ goals.
I'm going to captain him now,
10.
straight up captain. So if he doesn't pull through, I'll blame you.
I've got a feeling he's gonna annihilate them.
Yeah, I'm very happy to see that, to be honest. I brought him in last week in hopes that he'd be a top 3 forward. And
He will.
If he gets 200 there, he's pretty much well on his way. And I think I need that after bloody Dylan Shield going down for 6 weeks. But yeah, thanks for joining me today, boys. Once again, apologies for the poor organisation. We'll let the audience in on it. They're one of us. Obviously didn't organise it till the very last minute, hence why we're doing it at 10:46 p.m. But from now on, cricket season's winding down. Sundays are free, so I can start organising shit on Sundays. Hopefully, record on Mondays, and then we can get it up on Tuesdays, so the people can get around it before the following round starts. But yeah, hope you enjoyed getting on the potty once again. Always loved it, as I always do. And we'll be back next week with another AFL review episode. Thanks for listening and watching, and see you next time. Cheers.